Happens when Roman Reigns comes back. Roman hasn't wrestled since SummerSlam. SummerSlam was back in August. You told me Roman Reigns hasn't been around for 2 months? That's absurd. Jimmy and Solo are both unhinged, and Solo clearly good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everybody. It is Saturday, October 14th, and you know what that means. It is time for the High Risk Wrestling Podcast, and you know whose game it is. I am your host, Jeremy Pierce. Welcome, one and all. As always, you know you can check me out on the socials. Charismatic Creations on Facebook and YouTube. Charismatic_Creations 52 on Instagram, and of course the 215 on Twitter. I call it an X. That is spelled out. Coffee, Patreon donations are always welcome. Don't forget to check out Instagram as we're in the middle of our 31 days of Halloween. Knocking out these horror movies, knocking out these horror shows, getting them up there for you. But for today on the High Risk Wrestling Podcast, seeing as how Jade Cargill has moved over to the WWE, and the artist formerly known as Edge, now known as Adam Copeland, has moved over to AEW. I thought it'd be fun to look at some of the biggest wrestling company jumps, and this will be an ongoing series. I got 4 for you today, but for now, you know what's next. So just go on and hit my music. Right, seeing as how our show is, the biggest company jumps, you know what that list has got to be. These are the 5 wrestlers who I like to see move to another company. Number 5, Io Sky. If y'all don't know, but you should know, Io Sky is my favorite women's wrestler on the planet. She's just so good, and I want to see her go over to Impact. Yes, she can go over to New Japan with the Joshis, but I think she'd be slightly squandered in AEW, and in Impact they would let her just go. Matches against Deonna Purrazzo, Jordan Grace, and Tasha Steelz, and Mickey, and so on and so forth. She could truly dominate. Number 4, the Motor City Machine Guns. Now, they've pretty much been in TNA Impact for the majority of their career, but there's one other place where I can see them really thrive, and that would be in AEW. Now, they made an appearance there, teaming with Jay Lethal, but going to AEW with that tag team division, that stacked tag team division, these 2 legends would absolutely kill. They would give you dream match after dream match after dream match. Imagine them against the Hardys and the Lucha Brothers and Edge and Christian and FTR. Oh my goodness, it would be absolutely amazing. Number 3, Ricky Starks to the WWE. I'm gonna keep this one short and sweet. How you see Jade in the WWE, how it just, it fits for her. That's how I feel about Ricky. Even though Ricky is great in AEW, he will probably reach bigger heights, greater heights in the WWE. It just feels natural. Number 2, Bayley to AEW. Yes. I picked this one because there's nothing left for Bayley to do in the WWE, and with so many up-and-comers they have over there in NXT, and Bayley just having done everything, multiple time women's champion, tag team champion, she's a Grand Slam champion. It's over. She doesn't really need to do anything, but going over to AEW, she'd have a little bit more freedom to work with a different crop of wrestlers, even work at some other companies and some other promotions, and team up with Mercedes. Again, at number 1, Jay White to the WWE. And this one is tricky because he's really finally getting his footing in AEW, but there were rumors for a hot minute that once his New Japan contract was up, Jay White would be moving over to the WWE, and I could see why. With Triple H finally officially in charge of creative, Jay White would get the push of a lifetime, and essentially we'd get multiple dream matches: Jay White AJ, Jay White Seth, Jay White Cody, Jay White versus Roman. It would be just something spectacular. He's great on the mic, he's great in the ring, and he would be treated as an equal and would not be dumbed down. But those are the 5 people that I would love to see jump to another company. We'll be right back. On this day, I see clearly. Yes, our superstar spotlight, the artist formerly known as Edge, now known as Adam Copeland, has made his way into AEW, and it is really shocking. He felt like a WWE lifer. It's strange to see him. It's so funny. It's strange to see him going by the name Adam Copeland, but also using his Metalingus theme and still being called a rated R superstar. It's funny. It really is. But he's over there and he gets to put a bow on his career. There's nothing left for him to do in the WWE, and now he gets to go and just have fun, especially coming off of that neck injury with him. Being told he should never wrestle again. He would never wrestle again. Same thing with Saraya and Bryan Danielson. And Edge, I think he'll wrestle enough, but won't put himself in harm's way. He's definitely gonna put in some hardcore matches and do some wild shit, but still keeping it safe. He's essentially a replacement for CM Punk, and I'm perfectly fine with that. But we know what we're all here for. We want the nostalgia run. That after his little feud with Christian is over and done with, they're going to team up so we can see Edge and Christian versus the Hardys one more time. And I'm all here for it. Wrestling jumps are nothing new. It's always fun to, well, first of all, it's never fun to hear that someone got fired or that their contract was not renewed. That's the first thing. But it is great to see someone in a new environment. Right now we're experiencing Jade in the WWE and Adam Copeland in AEW. And it's sometimes it's strange because like Edge, Adam Copeland felt like a WWE lifer, and now here he is in AEW. And it happened a lot during the 2000s. Everybody and their mom was in Impact Wrestling at one point. It was just strange. Like I totally forgot Rikishi was there and Viscera was there. It's wild. It's strange. But the change of environment, the change of pace is always good. And sometimes these jumps were absolutely monumental. So, with that being said, here are some of the biggest company jumps of all time. And let's go with Chris Jericho to the WWE, leaving WCW. 1999, WCW was really on its last legs. The NWO had carried them to unprecedented success, and it was crazy how much success WCW was experiencing. But a lot of non-NWO stars were getting left out on the dust. They weren't really doing anything. And if you weren't a part of the NWO or in that upper echelon, then you were just screwed. Chris Jericho saw this. The man that you could arguably make a case is the greatest of all time decided to leave. He saw the writing on the on the wall, and he decided to jump to the WWF at the time. And I remember it like it was yesterday. There was a countdown timer appearing for several months to build up to the end of the millennium, i.e. the year 2000. Y'all remember the whole Y2K craze. And on August 9th, 1999, the timer finally reached 0. And all you heard was, break the laws down. And you see standing in that ring being interrupted by this timer was The Rock. So it's like, who had the audacity to interrupt The Rock? And the countdown reached 0, the music played, and it was Chris Jericho. This is hands down one of the most memorable wrestling debuts in the history of just wrestling. Jericho came out, gave us the welcome to Raw is Jericho, and then he and The Rock traded some jabs, some barbs on the mic against each other. And the rest is history. The rest is history. Jericho did amazing, wonderful things in the WWE. Should have won more world championships, but when you're in the reign of Triple H, it's gonna hurt. But he's an icon, and that jump. I like to think that jump of Jericho to WCW was kind of the catalyst and really the start of the downfall of WCW. It was different. It was something that we weren't expecting, and they really capitalized on it. And even sticking with that jump, we can't just talk about Jericho to WWE, WWF. We've got to talk about one of the really big jumps, and that's Kevin Nash and Scott Hall going from the WWF to WCW. So Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, and Kevin Nash, Diesel, were two of the biggest stars of wrestling in the 1990s. They were everywhere. They were in all of the marketing material. And they usually had championship gold, whether it be the Intercontinental Championship or the World Championship. And way before we had non-compete clauses and you gotta wait to go somewhere. May 27th, 1996, Scott Hall showed up on Nitro. But see, here's the thing, fans were shocked. This is before all the dirt sheets. His contract ended a week before. So when he showed up, we thought he was invading WCW. It was shocking. It was incredibly shocking. He just walked on right in like it was nothing. And then 2 weeks later, Kevin Nash showed up. So he and Hall jumped ship and formed the Outsiders. Great tag team. And they were anti-WCW, and it's still, again, we thought they were invading the company, were feuding with Sting, and they were feuding with Randy Savage. But it didn't just stop there. Their jump helped shift fans over from the WWF to WCW. And then we know what happened at Bash at the Beach. It was who's the third man? Who's teaming up with Hall and Nash to take out WCW? Well, it was none other than Hulk Hogan turning his back on WCW and forming the NWO, the New World Order. It's crazy to think that wrestling would be totally different if Hall and Nash had not left and went to WCW. We wouldn't have gotten the curtain call, which changed everything. We wouldn't have gotten the NWO, which completely changed professional wrestling. Would WCW still be here if they didn't have Hogan, Nash, and Hall really in charge of running creative? What would have happened to Hulk Hogan's career? Would he still be this blue-collared babyface, I am a real American? Like, it's really crazy to think of what would happen. But the forming of the NWO allowed WCW to dominate the WWF in the ratings for over 2 years. Over 2 years. But they couldn't get out of their own way. We know the story. We don't need to talk about this anymore. We know what happened to WCW. But Hogan, Hall, Nash, the NWO, something crazy. How about Saraya? Yes, Saraya to AEW. Now, this one is fairly recent, and it's fine. It was shocking. So, just how I felt like Edge was a WWE lifer, I really thought the same for Saraya, then known as Paige. That even if she wasn't going to stay in the WWE, she would still be an ambassador and move back over to Europe. But no, on an episode of Dynamite, it happened. Saraya showed up. At first I was like, Paige, because it's the chat, that's what I like to say. But yeah, no, she showed up. And I'm like, okay, maybe is she going to wrestle again? What's going to happen? But the women's division needed it. They needed just another star. I know there are a lot of people that are 50-50 on Saraya, but she's too damn important to women's wrestling. For a lot of the troubles that she's had, she is one of the catalysts for the change in women's wrestling professionally. We all know it starts with Impact Wrestling, but what Paige was doing down in NXT was different, and it was showing you that women can be great in the ring. Women can be dominant in the ring and put on fantastic matches. It really helped, and I'm happy to see her wrestling. I'm a fan of Saraya, and even though her championship reign just ended, there's so much more for her to do, and I'm just happy to see her in the ring again. Play it safe, but to still be able to do what you love, because when you come from a wrestling family like that, you cannot not be in the ring. And lastly, I'd be remiss not to mention Kurt Angle to TNA. So, in 2006, WWE were launching their eventually failed ECW brand. And Kurt Angle was a part of that brand. He was the wrestling machine. Kurt, as we like to joke. And they tried. And they tried. It wasn't enough. He requested his release, which they granted him. That surprised a lot of people, fans, people within the company. He was one of the biggest names in all the professional wrestling Kurt Angle was. And he was just unhappy and he was working hurt. He just needed to take some time. September 24th, 2006, less than 2 months after his final WWE match, Kurt Angle, it was announced, had signed with TNA by then President Dixie Carter at the end of the No Surrender pay-per-view. A month later, he arrived in the Impact Zone and immediately got into a fight with one of TNA's biggest stars, Samoa Joe. We'll never forget it. Him coming up from the ramp, walking down to the ring, eyeballing Samoa Joe, and then headbutting him. Kurt Angle had essentially announced that he arrived. And it was so crazy because it was Kurt Angle going from the bigger WWE to the much smaller at the time TNA. And if you go back and watch a lot of the old TNA videos, they were in some sizable arenas. They had big crowds and they had a lot of major stars. But what helped him jump was he got to work fewer dates. He took a lower payment, but he got fewer dates and he could essentially heal up. And he became a bigger star again. People forget this. Kurt Angle spent a decade in TNA. A decade. And this was one of the most shocking, surprising jumps because it was Kurt Angle, a huge star at the time, going over to what was essentially at the time the second promotion in America, because WCW was long gone by this point. But he brought a fresh face. He brought new eyes to the company, to the product, and it worked. There were some major highs and some lows with Kurt Angle there, but he was there for a decade, and it ultimately helped the company. So that jump alone could go down as probably the biggest one because it was just so shocking. It'd be like if Randy Orton left the WWE and went over to, I don't know, NWA right now. Because people going to the Impact now wouldn't be very shocking. But that's how big Kurt Angle's move was. And it shifted some things. It helped for sure elevate TNA. But that is our show for today. I apologize for the abbreviated show. I'm just a little bit under the weather. But again, thank you all for listening and for watching. I greatly appreciate it and love the support. Please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe on this show. Next week, we will have our Bound for Glory preview. Yes, I'm excited for that. Impact Wrestling is bringing us essentially their WrestleMania, which is Bound for Glory. And they've got a really good card. I'm excited for that. Don't forget to check me out on the socials. Charismatic Creations on Facebook and YouTube. Charismatic_Creations 52 on Instagram. The 215 spelled out on Twitter. Coffee, Patreon donations are always welcome. Always, Zia Lee, Wendy Chu, Gigi Dolan, Bailey, and Willow Nightingale. Holla at your boy. Peace.